Hi there, Jeff here from the Wetsuit Centre talking to you today about the Xcel Axis winter wetsuit, men's winter wetsuit for winter 2013 into 2014. Xcel wetsuits then have introduced the Axis in replacement of the X-Flex. So a bit of a rebranding for the suit and a change of a few of the features and functions which I'll go through with you in a second. Now Xcel wetsuits, basically they have had a similar range for the past few years with the dry lock at the top of the end of the range, the most expensive suit, and then you've got the Infinity which sits underneath that, and then previously you had the X-Flex moving down to the more entry-level suits. A bit of a shake-up now. You've got the Revolt, you've got the Infinity, you've got the dry lock, and then you've got the Axis, which sits as a kind of like a mid-range suit, and then it moves even further down the chain. So it's a bit of a broader range of suits really to cover all the different price points. But the Axis sits sort of in the mid-range of the suits. In the UK retails of £199, which is kind of like a mid-range suit. But having said that, you get a huge amount of features and functions within the suit. Xcel, previous winners of the SEMA Wetsuit of the Year award for the dry lock. It was previously renowned as pretty much the the warmest wetsuit that you could get, which made it really, really popular in the UK, Scandinavia, all the sort of islands. Got a lot of the guys in Scotland really sort of rave about these suits being so warm. So they've carried a really good reputation, and they haven't changed or tweaked a huge amount through their wetsuit range until the last few years, where the dry lock really took off in terms of waterproof technology. You've got the sort of the water repellent fibres, quick dry lining, and so you've got all that kind of thing going on. And so they've rebranded everything, rejigged everything to sort of make room for all this sort of technology and try and sort of cover a price point for every wetsuit. And the Axis is kind of equal with a few of their competitors in terms of these. You've got the 100% super stretch wetsuits for around about sort of 179 to 200 quid. So that's what this is. It's 100% super stretch. So from top to bottom is made of Xcel's super stretch neoprene. You can sort of see that sort of as I demonstrate. Give you a nice tug on the wrist there. Really, really soft and flexible to the touch. It does feel really good. The jersey, which is the outer lining of the suit that they use, is very, very soft and flexible to the touch, which will make the suit a bit easier to get on and off because it's nice and sort of soft and slippery. You can get your hands and feet through it easy. So it does feel great from that point of view, and it's the whole way through the suit as well, so you get that stretch the whole way through. The suit itself is a 5'4", which seems to be sort of like more of a common trend these days, that suits, instead of being sort of standard sort of 5'4'3", they're just going with the 5'4". I guess it's because neoprene has become so flexible these days that you can happily put 4mm on the arms rather than 3, and still have loads of flexibility, but you actually get a lot more warmth as well. One thing I do mention with a lot of different suits is they all sort of say 5'4", but the actual thickness of the neoprene does vary between manufacturers. So somewhere at O'Neill, they rely on the quality of their neoprene and everything to still retain warmth without having to go too bulky on the neoprene with the Techno Butter, whereas Xcel are just sort of a bit more old school in terms of good chunky neoprene to keep you nice and warm. And so if I sort of demonstrate that, you can see that on the leg there. That is a good healthy 5mm and 4mm on the arm there as well. Okay, it'd be interesting to see sort of get a tape measure out and see exactly how thick it actually is. So that's essentially how the suit is constructed. In terms of the seams, which is another important part. Now all of the seams are strategically placed. All of the different suits have a different cut to them. O'Neill have been known for being a bit broader, Ripco a bit more athletic, Quicksilver a bit narrower, and Xcel are kind of someone a little bit broader. They kind of do suit the broader guy, but they are nice, a bit more tapered around the waist than O'Neill. So I find that I fit well into a medium tall in the Xcel wetsuits. I'm 6'1", sort of 42-inch chest and 34-inch waist. They do sort of fit really well around my sort of waist and shoulders, so that gives you a bit of an indication of where they sit in terms of cut. All of the seams strategically placed to make sure they're nice and comfortable, they fit the body well, and you've got pre-bent seams to make sure they don't affect the restriction of the suit in any way, shape or form. All of the seams are well thought about in terms of where they're placed. Around the lumbar region, you've got a dip in the smoothing in there to make sure you've got plenty of flex. Maybe a bit of a downside that you've got the bum seam here. Some people might not like that. Maybe sort of pulling a little bit on the lumbar there, but it shouldn't have too much of a detrimental effect on the suit. In terms of the actual seams themselves, it's what you'd expect from a sort of good quality wetsuit. You've got glued and blind stitched seams here. So stitched on the outside of the wetsuit, and on the inside it's then glued. double stitched actually, so there's a bit more stitching here as well on the inside, but fully sealed and then taped around the critical parts of the suit, like around the joint there, just to make sure it doesn't pull apart. I'll pull the suit inside out for you in a second so you can see inside the suit and what's happening there. The chest zip entry system is something that Xcel really pioneered with the dry lock, the sort of actual dry lock system. This is an X2 zip system, and basically what that means, it's diagonal, okay, so faces downwards, obviously promotes getting water out of the chest entry system. Should you get any water in, it makes it harder for water actually to penetrate the suit. The suit itself, the zipper, is a plastic YKK zip, so it's nice and robust, not sort of like some of the sort of more top-end wetsuit manufacturers who shall remain nameless. Basically put on quite a cheap zip, which is a bit of disappointing in a £300 suit. But with this one, it's a good plastic zip. The reason they use plastic is because it's non-corrosive. It won't seize up basically, so you don't have any problems there. The suit opens inward. The chest zip system, you've got a toggle to fasten it down, and you've got a little key loop inside there so you can still stash your key. Okay, now the chest zip system, the way that it works, basically the inside of the suit you've got here, comes up nice and high. Something they've done with this suit which I do like is they've basically just sort of thinned out the neoprene around the top of the suit there as well, just to create a better seal against your skin. Two flaps that come over each other, nice and high, so any water that doesn't come in through your neck or through the side of the chest zip, instead of coming straight into the suit, that diagonal system will drain it back out, and it's the same around the back as well. Basically it will be drained out of the back of the suit there. Okay, so that's the inside of the suit, brought up nice and high, two flaps so that you can open it nice and wide and get in through the suit. And Xcel suits are kind of notoriously a bit harder to get in and out of because the neoprene is quite chunky. It's kind of like similar to seaskins. But once you do get into the suit, it does sort of promote more warmth by keeping water out of the wetsuit. So the harder it is to get into, the harder it is for the water to get into as well, which is basically the theory. And then the actual chest zip system then is actually sewn onto the outside of the suit, over the top, and then it comes up and over your head and attaches across the front there. Basically I'll just allow it to create a perfect seal around your shoulder there. It's a bit of smooth skin and a toggle and a tightener there as well, just to sort of make the best out of that. Create a seal, then you shouldn't get any water coming through the chest zip at all. And any water that comes in through the collar, when you get a flush through, instead of going into the suit, you guide it out of the chest zip system. It's inevitable you will still get some water into the suit with really sort of like hard wipeouts and stuff, but it should be pretty minimal. Around the collar then, it's an unbroken seam. That's the good thing about chest zips, you don't have any sort of break in the collar, which just means it's better for stopping flush throughs. Smooth skin around the collar, stops any rash and creates a better seal against your neck. And I do like the single line collars as well. They're really good on Xcel, they're nice and high, and they do keep water out really well, and they're quite comfy, rather than like some of the double line collars which can be a little bit restrictive around your neck. Okay, so that's essentially everything going on out the outside of the suit. Everything of note, you've got the Duraflex knee pads on the knees, standard material they use these days just to make sure the suit doesn't sort of wear through on the knees, and it works really, really well, that stuff. One thing Xcel do as well, which is a nice attention to detail, they kind of oversize that knee patch, then sew it in so it kind of puffs up, which is great because it cups your knee and allows your knee into the suit a little bit easier. So it's a nice little touch. Okay, so if I turn the suit inside out for you, have a little look at what's going on the inside. Okay, so now we have the wetsuit inside out for you to have a little look on the inside. So all of the black neoprene here, basically on the inside, is the Ultra Stretch, Xcel Ultra Stretch neoprene running the whole way through the suit, so top to bottom. Critically taped in all of the sort of like dangerous places, or the places are more likely to pull apart on the seams, so which typically tends to be around the chest panel, around your sort of your ankles and your wrists where they're under a bit more stress, so they do think about that. What you're probably wondering is the blue material. Now the thermal material has become pretty much a given in most decent wetsuits these days, and the thermal material, what I mean by that is kind of like an insulating material, and it's usually sort of like a type of plastic or bamboo, and that's basically used to insulate you and retain heat within the wetsuit, much like thermal underwear. It's quick drying as well, and basically promotes a quicker drying system within the wetsuit, so you don't have to get back into a cold wet wetsuit. Previous years, it used to be green on the Xcel, though we're going with the bamboo thermal lining, but they've moved away from that now. I guess that the sort of environmental side of things wasn't really that much better, the bamboo material, the actual process of making it. It wasn't actually that green, so Xcel have moved away from that into just a more sort of functional thermal lining, which is the quick dry polypro lining that they've got here. It's much like the sort of fluffy stuff basically, but it doesn't. One thing that Xcel have tried and tested is that sort of fluffy stuff that you get with the Rip Curl flash dry, that kind of thing, and a few other suits. Although it is sort of aesthetically quite pleasing, this stuff will dry just as quickly, although it isn't as fluffy. And will just have just as many insulating properties, if not more. They've kind of tested it out. I guess it's more of a tighter weave. I don't exactly know the sort of technical side of things, but that's the boast of it basically, that it is just as quick drying, and it's also actually a little bit better in terms of insulating you. So from an aesthetic point of view, it's nice to have that fluffiness inside, but apparently this thermal panel will do the job and more. And you get that on the chest, and you get it on the kidneys as well. With a little bit of fusion taping around the top there just to make sure that it doesn't pull apart. Okay, so essentially that's everything going on the Xcel Axis wetsuit, which was previously known as the X-Flex. I think it's a great wetsuit for $199. It's kind of just bang on the money really. I like chest-zip wetsuits with a bit of thermal lining and full stretch. For £199 you can't really go wrong. It is definitely a fantastic wetsuit, and every Xcel wetsuit that I've ever used or had has been incredibly warm and really well fitted for me, so I've got nothing but good things to say about them. Maybe from an unbiased point of view, something to say about the Xcel wetsuits. Maybe they do trade on their name a little bit. Obviously previously they didn't have much competition in terms of them being the warmest wetsuit on the market. Because the dry lock just sort of, everyone wanted a dry lock 4 or 5 years ago because they were pretty much renowned as being the warmest and best wetsuits on the market. And along with that came obviously the inevitable price hikes, which basically kept that wetsuit. People really wanted it, and so it became the most desired but also the most expensive wetsuit on the market. Totally mangling this one. And basically maybe that's carried on a little bit because the Xcel Axis, although it's a fantastic wetsuit, full super stretch wetsuit with thermal lining, you can get full super stretch wetsuits from their competitors now for less money basically. So it's kind of down to the individual if they really like Xcel wetsuits, they know they fit well, and the Axis would be definitely one to go for. Then obviously you've got the dry lock now. As a top end wetsuit, it's pretty much the most expensive wetsuit apart from the Rip Curl Flash Bomb Plus on the market. So how much Xcel sort of trade off their name a little bit, or how much extra quality you actually get for your money, maybe is a bit debatable, because for around about the £199 range it's pretty competitive. But having said that, the Xcel Axis is definitely up there. You know, it's and if you know Xcel suits do well for you, it's really well made, it's not going to fall apart, the warranty is great with the suit, and it fits really well for you, then I definitely recommend this wetsuit if that's your kind of budget. And basically a good all-round wetsuit from Xcel, who always produce good wetsuits, and definitely won't let you down with this one.